And to build trust in autonomous systems, transparency, explainability, and continuous validation must be embedded into AI models and their outputs. Achieving autonomy at scale also requires significant cultural and organizational change, shifting from siloed systems to cross-functional collaboration, fostering AI literacy, and adopting governance models that balance innovation with accountability. Joining this session to explain more are Ali Tizghadam. He's a fellow at Telus, and next to him is Anshul Bhatt. He's head of sales Americas and product strategy, that at Rakuten Symphony. And gentlemen, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having me here.
Thanks for being here. Anshul, I'm going to start with you on the discussion today, if you don't mind. Really, this roadmap between basic automation and full network autonomy. What does that map look like?
Yeah, I think when it comes to automation and moving towards, higher levels of autonomy, I think it's important to keep in mind the perspective of people, processes, and tools. So the roadmap, from the tooling perspective, from the product perspective, we have implemented it in a phase-wise approach where we digitalize, automate, autonomize. But like I said, I think it's important to also have a roadmap in terms of process. That how are you going to create the automation backlog? Because unless you have a validated, prioritized backlog of automation, the approach just could go ad hoc, and you might not even realize the benefits that you were planning to realize at first place. So I think it's absolutely important to keep the process approach in mind, that how you can change your processes that would result into creation of automation backlog. For example, during network incident management, every incident debrief should involve a preventive measure or like an automation opportunity step, so that the backlog could start flowing in from the incident management perspective. Similarly, change management, release management, how can automation help improve some of the KPIs over there? So the roadmap should consist of the processes. And of course, on the people front, I think most important is to make sure that the right skilling and upskilling is done for people by providing them the right frameworks so that they could participate into this automation democratization. So people, processes, tools, digitalize, automate, and autonomize. So that's our approach.
Yeah. Ali, there's some early stage automation that are already improving some of these processes, some of that Anshul just mentioned. Maybe one or two of those processes that are really benefiting from this early stage automation?
Yeah, for me, in order to get to that part, I would like to look at the first question from a little bit of different angle, okay, and then I transition it to your question. So, the way that I'm looking at this iteration that you mentioned, we started by automating individual tasks. Then we expanded individual tasks into processes, and that's where this buzzword of orchestration started happening, right? Okay. And we are now getting mature in the orchestration as well. Now, the third iteration of the automation, if you will, is automating the decision making, meaning that I have a pool of policies, for example, a pool of rules, and then machine is going to pick based on the situation awareness that I have created, based on 360 observability of my network. It actually tries to figure out what are the best combination of policies from that pool to execute. And of course, the last stage is where you can dynamically adjust the policies or change them. Now, with that in mind, of course, your question was some of the early successes that we had on automation. When it comes to success, I would say the most successful set of automations that we had was in provisioning of some of the basic configuration managements that we have in the network. Mm-hmm. And even if I look at it from TMF Autonomous Networks Framework closed loop map, monitor, analyze, plan, execute, usually the service providers have started the automation in the execute part, which is basically config management. We had a lot of success stories there. But the second step, which is really important, is in the monitor or awareness part. And a part of awareness part, you talked about collaboration. You talked about having this unified view of the network, which we don't have. We have silos of inventory, silos of data sets, and it's really important to federate them. And I deliberately say federate intentionally, and I'm not saying rebuilding because we can't. We have invested a lot, and we don't have to just touch what we have. We have to build on top of it, federate with it, build the intelligence on top of it, expose the unified intent-based APIs, and then gradually start leveraging those APIs to map the existing. So that's the second and one of the most important things that we have started doing, and we have had a lot of success, and we continue doing that, right? And of course, after that, we go into now. Immediately after that, and along with that, it's more advanced analyze part, monitor, analyze. So basically, after execute and monitor, the third wave of automation for us is in the analyze part, and that's where the anomaly detection, event correlation, and fault correlation is really important, because that prepares us to move to the next stage, which is RCA and giving the decision making to the hands of the machine, right? Yeah. Okay.
Anshul, oh, sorry, did you want to respond?
No, I was just saying, like, yeah, I agree with that whole approach of monitoring, analyze, decide, and act. And I think the most difficult part is what Dr. Ali also mentioned, the reasoning and the decision-making aspect. So I think it's the right approach to go step by step, do the things that are, more obvious to do, like config management and automate the action orchestration, monitoring, and then eventually figure out the RCA decision-making bit. So.
So Anshul, I'll stay with you. Moving from automated networks or automation to fully autonomous network functions, what are the KPIs or metrics that you can leverage right now to measure that success?
Yeah, I think so. Even TM Forum has defined, like level 1 to level 5 of autonomy, and the idea is that one could be have higher levels of autonomy in some particular domain versus others. So the idea is to approach it per domain, like for example, RAN, transport, core, like different domains within a network. And at the same time, we also have to look at the business benefits. So for example, maybe an automation at RAN level could result into more business benefits compared to, let's say, core side of the network. So I think keeping these two as our pillars in terms of the complexity and also in terms of the business benefits to automate, we need to define certain metrics. A few metrics that we look at in order to make sure that we are on the right track when it comes to the automation implementation is first is the time to value, that how much time we are taking in order to put a given automation use case into production right from the requirement. So I think the time to fulfill the automation requests is one use case. Some other use cases that we also look at, or the KPIs that we look at, are how effective is the automation in terms of reusability. So you don't want to create an automation workflow as a custom standalone workflow, but rather the automation workflow should be done in different modules which become reusable entities. For example, you want to run a health check in the network, that could be a one automation. You want to run an upgrade in the network, so you first do the health check, you do the upgrade, then you do the health check. So that way you are reusing that automation module. So the reusability percentage is also another interesting use case, so that the way your automations are created, they are reusable in nature. And then eventually, when you have an autonomous brain looking at all these modules, it can also automatically combine and create evolutionary workflows. So in order to have evolutionary workflows, and I think that's the main difference between automation and autonomy, that an autonomous network would be able to learn and evolve based on the feedback. So it's absolutely important to have the reusable modular automation sets of automations. And also at the same time, once the automations are in production, the job is not over. You need to constantly monitor and make sure that the automations are working the way they were supposed to. So when it comes to basic automation, you could look at some KPIs around anomalies in terms of the implementation time, the success rates of the automation. Are the models getting drifted, or they are still behaving as the way? And if they are getting drifted, then you need to constantly tune the hyperparameters. So there are a lot of KPIs, both in terms of the automation, right from the automation fulfillment side, from the process perspective, to the automation performance, and like I said, like the day two operations of the automation itself in terms of the success rates and drifting of the automation. So we need to monitor KPIs across all these various aspects.
Ali, I want to talk about, when Anshul's talking about these automated or autonomous decision-making systems, trust is an issue. How do we increase the confidence in that trust going forward?
Yeah, um, you know, uh, the new world from architectural perspective is very different from the old world, because when we are talking about intent, we are talking about a top-down approach as opposed to a very typical approach we used to have in the operator side, which is a bottom-up, right?
Sure.
So, and then you have to basically make sure that on one hand you give your operations team, which are used to work with the device, the intent level and not the device aspect. But at the same time, you have to make sure if they are asking question, you can map that intent down to that layer to give them confidence. That's the first starting point from operational aspect for the trust. And the way that I'm looking at it and the way that we are trying to propose it is that we create them. We have been going through this journey of DevOps, right? So before we even come to autonomous networks, even in that context, why did we do the DevOps? Because we had a gap. We had a gap between architects who are designing something and the operations team who are complaining that, okay, this is wrong, this doesn't work. And there was a disconnect between architects and the operations team. When DevOps came, we tried to build a data model that includes the design and the operational parameters together. And that's where the trust starts to come. That's where the collaboration practically comes. Cross-domain functional teams that we are building naturally evolve when we do it that way. So with that in mind, I remember when I wanted to start building our ecosystem for automation that we call it Tina, one of our VPs who used to be in charge of our change management, he came to me and said, hey, Ali, if you want to even come and talk to me to automate this change management that right now I'm doing it manually, you have to give me two things ahead of time. First, trace and log of every single action that is taken, regardless of if it is with the person or if it is with the machine. I need to know what application and what time did what, right?
Okay.
And second, reversibility. You have to be able to roll back any automated action that you create. If there is an action that you cannot roll it back, don't even talk to me. That was a good model for me, that whatever in order to build that trust, I have to be able to explain what I do. That's what explainability means, right? So you have the logs and you can reverse it. And of course, in the age of AI, that explainability is even more important, because if something goes wrong and if I say that just AI did it, nobody will accept. So I have to explain, okay, I am giving the reasoning capability to AI instead of humans. When humans are doing the reasoning, we have the architecture, we have the model, and everyone knows how we came from A to Z. Now, in the age of AI, and when the machine is doing the reasoning, I have to be able to have that trace for reasoning also created. So nowadays, that's a mandate for us. That's something that as soon as we talk about agentic AI, the first question is, okay, do you have this in roadmap that you have to explain what you are doing and you have to document what you have? Right? That's where, that's I think is the most important component of building the trust. Of course, I looked at it from technical aspect, from architectural aspect. There are many other aspects that we can look at it. Yeah.
Yeah, in fact, so I think the points that you mentioned from the design and vision perspective, it gives a very good framework, at what like CSPs and vendors should look at when they think about automation. But also to complement, on some of the usability aspects, because since we implemented some of these principles in Rakuten Mobile, and again, telecom is a regulated business. So as much as our automation engineers want to do closed loop automations, the NOC team or the operations team would want to follow the operations procedure for exactly the reasons Dr. Ali just mentioned. So I think a couple of things we implemented, were also to improve the trust factor is every automation template, we had certain attributes around, is it a service impacting automation? Is it a read only, write only kind of automation? The blast radius of this automation if went wrong. And based on these certain parameters, we created approval flows that, okay, some automation, if they are just read-only in nature, could simply be done with self-approval. Some automations which might change some parameter or which might have higher like blast radius. For example, if you want to change parameter for one site, it could just go, you can just do it with a manager approval. But if you are making a change to 1,000 sites, then you might need the operations head approval. So having the right approval process is one of the ways that we implemented to improve the trust factor and, slowly improvise redundant approvals if needed with time once the confidence builds up. Another thing that we implemented was also on the security side, that while we create service accounts for automations, it's also important to make sure that we have just-in-time privilege access, we have the least privilege access, and some of the security principles to make sure that while automation has full access to the network, it could only access network only when it's needed during the approved change window only, instead of any time of the day. So I think by using all these principles, we can definitely improve trust and things can.
And I think there is one more thing that, based on our conversation, I would like to add. In order to build the trust, that concept of network digital twin is also getting increasingly more important, because you are going to test what you want to deploy in a twin that is replicating the same network, the same environment, and that gives a lot more confidence to your operations team. And that's really becoming important, and that's why we are investing a lot to make sure that we have a good level of twin, not just the shadow, of course, because twin has 3 levels: model, shadow, and the actual twin. We are going through all that steps to basically give that confidence to our team that, hey, and of course, in that note, testing, pre-testing and post-testing, because as soon as you have the impact radius, then you can start building the post-testing.
Right? Yep.
In the beginning, Anshul, I asked you about shifting from automation to fully autonomous networks or autonomous networks. If we were sitting here this time next year, what do you think we should be talking about?
Yeah, I think, like the networks are becoming more and more complex, with 5G and now with satellites and network slicing. So there are a whole lot of complexities gonna get introduced in the network. And of course, at the same time, there is a lot of pressure, from consumer standpoint. They want better and better quality of service and more competition. So I think autonomous network is the only sustainable way for telcos to actually deliver the services with fraction of cost, or at least by not offloading the increasing complexity on the consumer. So I think we are going to see many more use cases, especially powered by AI. One particular aspect that I feel that AI is going to massively help in telecom is that the telecom engineers were always the domain experts in terms of standards and how the telecom network works, and they had a lot of ideas and they do a lot of things on their day-to-day life which were not able to get automated because they always lacked the software skills. And the software engineers, on the other hand, they did not have the knowledge of how telecom network works. So I think AI is gonna bridge that gap where, like, an intent or an idea that an RF engineer was implementing manually on everyday basis, they could simply type it and create an R app based on like a one-word natural language intent. And I think we are gonna see more and more R apps or X apps and many other apps which are not just talking about traditional SON use cases, but everything could be an R app. And I'm looking forward to sit on the same stage and talk about a lot of these AI created R apps which are like mini automations created using AI, but based on the ideas of the normal telecom engineers. So that could be an interesting game changer in the industry with the help of AI. Ali,
anything to add as we were sitting here this time next year?
Yeah, sure. So I agree with everything that you mentioned, but I would love to see next year that we have passed the hype and we come to reality of what is the art of possible with this new disruptive technology, just like many other technologies. And for me, if I'm looking at the problem mathematically, I want to see where the boundary of using Gen AI to help us in anomaly detection, because let's just pick on anomaly detection, right? Anomaly by nature is something that I don't know about it. And because of that, now, I keep hearing agentic AI for anomaly detection, and I use it myself. I'm trying myself, but I'm not naive to think that all the anomalies in the world of networking will be detected by AI agents. So there is a mathematical upper limit on what we can do, and I'm really thinking and trying to figure out what that upper limit is, because that's what defines what we can do with the machine.
Yeah,
right?
Interesting.
Yeah.
Wow. Well, a lot to talk about, a lot of runway between now and next year. So we'll come up with something else to the next iteration of this conversation, if you will.
Yeah.
Anshul, Bhatt, you've always been very generous with your time and your insight, so we appreciate that again.
Yeah.
Thanks, Abe. Always good chatting with you, and especially when Dr. Ali is here, the ideas are always there.
And do you mind if I call you Dr. Ali?
Oh, come on, Ali is enough.
Okay. It was great having you and your insight as well.
Thank you so much. It was great to be here with you and Anshul. Thank you so much.
Very much appreciated. Thank you.
Thank you.